Good evening, ladies. Welcome. Welcome to Latte. I'd like to just kind of do like a quick raise of the hands. If anybody's new to Latte, put your hands up for me. Wow, very nice. Welcome. So before we get started, I'd like to just kind of go over a few like housekeeping things. So before I get going on other announcements, just a quick reminder, go ahead and silence your cell phones now, just so that we don't get that awkward ring in the middle of Mary's message. And then the next thing we're going to talk about, so for Ladies Latte, as you can see, this is an amazing ministry. It continues to grow, especially now that the more we're moving a little bit out of COVID, you can see like more people are coming back and there's more food and things, and so it's really good, really exciting. Now the thing is that we need hands to help us with these things. So you have some cards on your table. If you're interested at all in being a part of the Latte team, there's a lot of different ways that you can be involved. I will tell you that our main needs right now probably is kitchen help, being maybe a table hostess or being willing to be a sub-table hostess in case a hostess has to cancel at the last minute for any kind of reason. And then also we have some tech team needs. So we actually have people that will stand behind the camera and record and do all kinds of cool tech stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Really cool things to learn. We have training that is provided for that. But we just need maybe a few more hands on deck just to kind of help us. So if you're feeling like a little nudge maybe and you want to get plugged in and you want to help and do something, please fill out that card, and then at the end of the work, when we're cleaning up, we'll pick it up, and then someone from the team will contact you afterwards. But that would be great. We'd appreciate that. So something that is coming up, I'm going to kind of skip a little bit here, to the Once Upon a Christmas craft show that's going to be happening on Friday, November 12th from 3 to 9 p.m. and then also Saturday from November 13th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that's going to be here at the Middleburg Heights campus. And you're going to be able to come. There's over 150 vendors. There's all kinds of things like furniture, artwork, floral designs, purses, woodworking, jewelry, handmade soap, all kinds of different things that you can come and take a look at. It's usually a really exciting big event. So if you would like to, there are these cards that look just like this. They're outside the table right out of those double doors when you leave, so you can grab one of those. Or as I like to do too, you can just use your phone and just snap a picture of the slide. You can do that as well. Whatever is a better reminder for you. So this past Thursday, we had our October reel, and this was our second reel. We talked about friendship this time around, and then we did put a poll out there for 3 different topics for next month. That poll is going to be closing on Thursday. If you want access to that, one of the great ways that you can do that is by following us on Facebook. We're Grace Women on Facebook. That is always a great way just to kind of see what are all the updates, what's happening, all the events. I put the poll actually up there today for anybody that wants to add what they want us to talk about. And so the team and I were going to meet next week to talk about, let's see, like what the best topic that comes in, what got the most votes. And then that's going to be our topic for next month. And then we'll also be surprised to see who's going to be our guest panelist as well. So love for you to join us. That's going to be November 4th at 9:30. We meet up in the venue. And then we meet from 9:30 to 11. There is childcare available, just like there is for Latte as well. You can register your kids online. And then it's just a great time, though, for us to get together and just have some organic conversation. So for tonight, since there's especially a lot of new people at Latte, we just have a few little rules. So we have, at your table, you're going to have a table hostess that's going to help you go through the discussion after Mary's message. You're going to walk through that discussion together, but just a few guidelines just that we want to keep in mind. So the first one is we want to be courteous. So we want to be respectful and considerate of others as we're sharing. We want to be positive, avoid any critical comments about people, especially if it relates to other religions or maybe some really touchy subjects. And we want to be sensitive. We want to make sure that everybody's getting their share to talk. We don't want to talk too much or too little. And then we want to be understanding. We want to try to listen without giving advice. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of different ways that you can find out what's going on. So the women's Facebook is one way. We also have an Instagram account. You could also check out our webpage. It's gracecma.org/ministries/women. So all of the different ministry opportunities, I mean, there's like a plethora on there. There's really something for everyone. You can go through there and find a way to get plugged in. But there's a lot of great opportunities there. And I think that might be all then for my housekeeping things. So I'm going to turn things over to Mary, and I hope you ladies enjoy tonight.
All right, so I got to embarrass some people first thing. If you are part of the team that makes Latte happen, could you just stand? All the people that are part of the team, greeters, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So grateful for you ladies. Thank you. Okay, now the next group, I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to anyhow. If this is your first time at Latte, would you just stand and let us give you a warm welcome? If this is your first time, woo, yay! All right, welcome. Okay, one more group. If you are at Latte tonight, would you just stand so we can welcome you? All right. Okay, while you're up, let's just wiggle a little bit, move around, loosen up. All right, welcome. So glad you're here. Some of you didn't stand. I'm a little bit nervous about that. Don't know what to think about that. All right, I'm going to say something right now that is going to make some of you very happy, and it's going to strike fear into some of you. You ready? It's 11 weeks until Christmas. Okay, I see a real variety of response to that. How many of you are pretty much done with your shopping? Okay, look around. If you want to be mad at somebody, look around right now. Okay, all right. We love you ladies anyhow. Yeah, in spite of that. So, yeah, I think I just let you off into some conversations. I'm going to have a hard time pulling you back, right? Come on back. Up here. So our son, Andrew, he's got a real math brain. He likes to think about numbers and things like that. So if I tell him Christmas is in 11 weeks, you know what he's going to do? He's going to say, what was I doing 11 weeks ago? Right? And then that'll give him perspective. Like, it's been 11 weeks since that, and then I know what to expect from 11 weeks to here. That's how he does things. So before we get into our message tonight, I want us to get an idea of how long 12 years is. You'll see why in a little bit. There's something significant about 12 years. So I want to ask you, where were you 12 years ago? Okay, if you're a little disoriented, right now it's 2021. Okay? So 12 years ago, if I did my math right, would be 2009. Did I do that right? Okay, 2009. Where were you in 2009? How old were you in 2009? Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to do that math. I'm 56 now, so 12 years ago, that makes me 44, right? In 2009. Where were you living? Same house, different house? Job? Same job, different job? Do you know that was 4,330 days ago? 4,330 days ago. Have some things changed in your family? I've gained some family members in 12 years. I got a new grandbaby, did I tell you that? Yeah. Got 2 new sons-in-law, so some things have changed. We've also lost some family members. Maybe you have too. In 12 years, your families have changed some. Have you graduated? Have you had some milestones? What's happened in 12 years is a long time. So I want to kind of give you a picture of what was happening 12 years ago, all right? Just to kind of remember how long ago that was. In 2009, there was a malfunction on U.S. Airways Flight 1549, and do you remember this? Sully landed the plane on the Hudson River. Remember that? Yeah, all 155 passengers survived. Remember, he was a hero. Yeah. In 2009, Uber was founded. Doesn't it seem like Uber has been around forever? It was 2009, and it was described like this. It's a ride-sharing service that hires people to drive other people to a specific destination, much like a taxi. That's how they described it. Who knew what was going to come of Uber in 2009? In 2009, the average price for a gallon of gas was $1.89. I checked today. In Ohio, the average price right now is $3.09. In 2009, Bernard Madoff, was sentenced to 150 years in prison for conducting a massive Ponzi scheme. I actually know someone who was caught in that Ponzi scheme. 2009, Barack Obama was inaugurated as the 44th U.S. president. 2009, the USPS raised the price of a first-class stamp. They raised it to 44 cents. Currently, it is 55 cents. Do you remember MySpace? That's a throwback, huh? Okay, in 2009, MySpace overtook Facebook in the US-based web traffic. How about this? Cloudy with a Chance for Meatballs? That came out in 2009. I remember my daughter was in Chicago in college, and we went to go see Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs for her. It was a lot of fun. In 2009, if you turned on the radio, you would likely hear this person, Taylor Swift. She had two of the biggest songs that year, Love Story and You Belong to Me. Another big song that year was All the Single Ladies, All the Single Ladies. But I couldn't find an appropriate photo to put up there. So in 2009, Sony sold over 12 million floppy disks. If you're under 25, I know you're saying, what's a floppy disk? It was this, and they used it in a computer, and that's all I know about it. So in a minute, we're going to read a short little passage from the Bible, and you'll see why I wanted us to get an idea about 12 years. So if you'll just kind of tuck that away. Our theme at Latte this year is uncommon courage. And each month, what we're going to do, we're going to look at another woman. And we're going to look at her life, get to know her, and we are going to be inspired by her. We're going to gain courage from her courage, because each of these women has been remembered for centuries for a reason. So this month, as I've been preparing, I've gained a new appreciation for the women that we're going to meet tonight. I've gained a new appreciation for what it's like to live with hidden pain, and for what to do if that's our reality. How do we deal with that? I've been inspired by her, and I think that you will be too. So before we get into her story, I want to ask you a question. If you were to sit down with someone for coffee, and they were to ask you this question, I wonder how you'd answer it. This woman carried hidden pain, the woman we're going to meet tonight. How about you? What is the hidden pain you carry? The things that nobody sees. Well, maybe somebody does, but not many people see. The things that you walk around with, what would you say? So I'm kind of a visual person. I brought a box with me tonight. And I wonder if we were to let this box represent your hidden pain, what would you put in here? What would go? It'll be different for each of us, right? We'll all have something. Probably some of you thought of something right away, and you say, I know what I'd put in that box. I know what's my hidden pain. And some of you are looking at that and you're saying, Mary, seriously, that is a small box, right? Don't worry, I got you covered. All right, so here you go. Okay, so you can use whichever visual fits you best tonight, okay? All right, so maybe for you it's physical, maybe it's relational, maybe it's emotional, maybe it's pain from your past. Whatever it is that would go in that box, can you right now mentally picture yourself taking that thing and putting it in the box, or in the box? And then as we go tonight, as we get to know this woman in the Bible, more things are probably going to come up. You're probably going to think, oh yeah, that's a hidden pain too. When that happens, would you just take that thing and put it in the box? Maybe you've got a note sheet on your table there if you're inclined to take notes, and you want on your sheet just to draw a box and write your things in there. You could do that. Whatever works best for you. I just want us to kind of have that forefront in our mind as we get to know our friend tonight in the Bible. So, here we go. This woman that we're going to look at tonight, her pain was hidden from other people, but tell me if this is the case. It can be hidden from other people, but it can be very, very real to us, right? We walk around. Nobody has any idea that I'm carrying this around with me. Nobody has any idea. They see me walking through the church lobby and they don't even see my box. How can they not see my box? It's so obvious. So it was hidden from other people, but very real to her. Her story is in 3 different places in the Bible. We're going to be reading from the book called Mark. Now, if you're not familiar with the Bible, it's one book, but within this book, there are 66 books, and each of them has a name, and we're going to read from the one called Mark tonight. So this is where her story is told. So we come into the story, and Jesus, as is often the case in the stories in the Bible, he's surrounded by crowds of people. Everybody wants his attention. The Bible says they're pushing up against him. They're it doesn't use the word squishing, but that's what it means. They're pushing up against him. They're crowding him. And here we are. We come into this story, and there's a crowd of people, and here's what the Bible says. A woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years. 12 years. It's a long time. With constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she had spent everything she had to pay them, but she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. 12 years with constant bleeding. So some versions of the Bible translate that phrase like this: 12 years with hemorrhaging. Not just a little bit of bleeding. 12 years with a constant flow of blood. So you think 12 years since 2009, she's been constantly bleeding. For 4,330 days, she woke up in the morning with a heavy flow. What does that even do to your body? I mean, can you imagine the cramps that she must have had that many days? She had to be in like constant pain. And then what about the anemia, right? When you bleed that much? The exhaustion and the fatigue and the shortness of breath, and your heart beats fast, when you're anemic. And I'm guessing that back in her day, you couldn't just I'm going to stop by CVS and buy some iron pills, right? She didn't have that. So the anemia she must have suffered with, maybe you can relate to that, and you say, yeah, in my box is some chronic pain, some constant pain that just won't seem to stop. So I want to give a quick shout out. There's a support group here, a chronic pain support group. The information's on the screen for that. And if you're someone who lives with chronic pain, that might be a really good spot for you to connect and to get some support. So reach out. It's a great group of people. So this woman, she had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years, she had spent everything she had to pay them, but she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. The last couple weeks, I've spent some time with two young women who've lived with, well, young is relative, right? It's a lot older now than it used to be, younger than I am, which is young, right? So I've talked to 2 women in the last couple weeks who live with significant pain, and it's been chronic. It's been going on, and both of them independently shared with me how they've been to one doctor, another doctor, another doctor. This one says this one says this one says let's try surgery, so they do surgery and it doesn't help. This one says let's try this medication. They try that and it doesn't. It's one thing after another, and the days turn into weeks, and the weeks turn into months, and the months turn into years. And what I'm hearing from them and from others is that it's just so discouraging for it to go on and on and on, and there are no answers. Maybe you can relate to that. So this woman, she hadn't gotten better. In fact, she had only gotten worse. She was really suffering physically, and she had used up all her resources. Was she incurable? I mean, was this going to be the rest of her life? But that's not all. In her culture, there were a lot of rules for people who wanted to be part of the community. Lots of things that people had to do to be able to be involved in the life of the community. And a woman with an illness like hers would not be allowed to be part of the community where she lived. Couldn't even be around people for 12 years. That's a pretty long quarantine. No meals with people, no coffee dates, no hugs. I mean, we went just that short little time with no hugs, and I was like, oh man, I've got so many hugs to make up for. Think about her 4,330 days. Can you imagine her loneliness and her isolation. As I studied this woman's life, I just gained such compassion for her. Wow. So alone, so tired, so lonely, so broke, so desperate. So many dreams for her life that were crushed. She knew rejection. She knew shame, loneliness, isolation, unfulfilled dreams. All of it was part of her story, part of the box that she was carrying around. And did anybody even know what she was going through all alone? So I want to go back to one of those words for a second, shame. Why would she feel shame? This wasn't about something she had done wrong. This was just about an illness that she had, right? So I find this interesting. They say, I don't know who they is, but they say that guilt is about the things you've done and shame is about who you are, right? I don't know about all that psychology stuff. Maybe that's a good description, but I do know this. Shame is very often something that someone has given to us, right? Things that they've said to us, ways that they've looked at us, things that they've excluded us from. You are not smart enough. You are not good enough. You are not whatever enough. Your family is whatever. And people can give us shame, and if we hear it enough, we begin to accept it. This woman, she had been given all kinds of messages over these 12 years. You can't be with us. We don't want you around. You're unclean. A long 12 years. Can you relate to that kind of emotional pain? She had physical pain. She had emotional pain. All of us carry some type of pain. Then we read these words. She had heard about Jesus. She had heard about Jesus, but here's what I wonder, what had she heard about him? Like, there was no social media back then, right? There was no radio, there was no TV. What had she heard about Jesus? So we're reading in the book of Mark, and I look to see, what does Mark tell us about Jesus prior to this story about this woman? Well, he tells us about Jesus healing a man with leprosy. And he tells us about Jesus healing a man who had been paralyzed. In fact, you know that story, right? The man couldn't get to Jesus because there was such a big crowd and couldn't push his way through. So his friends put him on a mat. It's a great story. Took him up on top of the house, cut a hole through the roof, and lowered him down. And Jesus healed him. Paralyzed man. Jesus did that. Mark tells us about Jesus healing the man who had the deformed hand, and about Jesus stilling the storm on the sea. Mark tells about all these things, and I wonder, are these the things that that woman had heard? Is that what she had heard about Jesus? If you've never read the book of Mark, you should do it. It's a really good book. If you don't have a Bible, in fact, see me. I'll get you a New Testament. I can give it to you for free, just a little New Testament. Or on your device, you can download YouVersion. It's on the screen up here. It's free. If you don't know how to do it, ask at your table. If they don't know, see me. I don't know much about tech, but I can help you get YouVersion, I think. It's great, though. You can read the Bible. You can choose your version. You can choose your language. You can tap a button, and they will read it to you. It's great. So you should read the book of Mark. It's great. So when she heard people talking about the power of Jesus, what did it spark in her? Here she is. She's incurable. She's broke. She's lonely. But she heard about Jesus, and it sparked in her hope. It sparked in her hope. So here's what I see in my own life and in the lives of a lot of people over the years. Our pain can either push us away from God, or it can propel us toward God. I've seen it go both ways. And I don't even always understand. Like, I look at people and I think, you have had way more than your fair share, and yet you have such a vibrant, beautiful faith. And other people, I think, well, I understand you've been through some hard times, but I mean, relatively speaking, and yet they're so mad at God and they're pushed away from Him. Our pain can push us away from God or propel us toward Him. For this woman, hearing about Jesus gave her the hope that she needed to let her pain propel her toward Jesus. Have I mentioned, if you haven't read the book of Mark, you should do it? It's a great book. For me, I just find reading about who Jesus is, talking to other people who experience Jesus in their lives, it helps give me hope to allow circumstances, pain in life to propel me towards Jesus too. It's so important. So, she heard about Jesus. It sparked hope in her, and look what she does. She thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I'll be healed. She has hope. Maybe for the first time in 4,000 days, right? She has hope. Nobody else can help me. I have tried everything. I'm desperate. But now she has hope. So this year and a half has been a crazy time, hasn't it? It's just been, before March of 2020, there were people who were hurting. There were marriages in trouble. There were divisions in churches. There were social media interactions that were toxic. There was anxiety. There was suicide. There were all those things prior to March of 2020. But this year and a half, it has set a whole new watermark, hasn't it? We were talking earlier, we were praying for you actually before Latte tonight, and we were saying how the cumulative stress level, if it was here before March of 2020, and then we added our own stuff on top of it, now it's here, and then we add our own stuff on top of it. It's just been a really hard time. And for me, honestly, it's brought a whole new level of desperation in my life. A whole new level of desperation. And here's what I'm finding out. Desperation can be a good thing. I hope you take that like I mean it. I'm not saying that I'm glad when bad things happen, but desperation can be a good thing. It's been good for me. Some of the difficult things we've been through this last year and a half have created a new space in my heart for God to do some new things, some beautiful things. And I've talked to a number of you, and you've said the same thing. It's been hard, but God has done some beautiful things in my life. And for the woman in our story tonight, desperation was good for her. Something really difficult made space in her heart for God to do some beautiful things. So, this woman, she wasn't even supposed to be out in public, right? In desperation, she goes out into this crowd of people. What if people recognized her? What if they saw her? What would they do? I picture her kind of like covering her face, and keeping her eyes low like you do when you're in a hurry at the grocery store and you don't want to see anybody, keeping her eyes low. If they recognized her, what would they do? Were they like whispering behind her back when she walked by, is that her? Is that woman? Why is she here? She shouldn't be here. I wonder, is that how it was? You know how we are now, right, with COVID? Like, if I feel a tickle in my throat, oh, no, no, I'm not going to cough in public, right? What do they call it? Cough shame, isn't that a thing? They call it cough shame. So I was on a plane recently, and the woman next to me sneezed, and I said, oh, bless you, and she goes, oh, I've been trying to hold that sneeze in for so long. Oh, this woman in our story, the shame that she would face for going out in public. But rumor had it that there was someone who could heal her. And so in her desperation drove her. In her desperation, she sought out Jesus. She was desperate, and so she pushed her way through that crowd. Even in the midst of the crowd, she set her focus on Jesus, and she was determined to get to him. Her desperation turned into determination. Her pain pushed her. Her tears turned to tenacity. Her ache became an asset. She had hope. So, she came up behind Jesus through the crowd. I can see her there, covered up, eyes low. There he is. She comes up behind him in the crowd. She reaches out and she touches his robe. Because she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I'll be healed. Here's something we can learn from her. Whatever's going on in our lives, it can push us to Jesus. We got to push through the crowds. Whatever stands in the way of us making time for Jesus, we got to push through that to get to him. What's the crowd in your life? Maybe it's not like a physical people crowd keeping you from Jesus. Is it busyness? Is it people's expectations of you? What's the crowd in your life? Is it habits that are hard to break? Things that just pull you away? Whatever stands in the way of you spending time with Jesus, let's learn from her. Push through. What does that look like? Well, you're going to have time to talk about that around your tables, but it all comes to prioritizing. Knowing our Creator is the most important thing we could possibly do in life, and if we're letting crowds push him out, we're missing out on the very best thing, what we were made for. So she made her way through the crowd to get to Jesus. She let her desperation drive her forward. She came up behind him through the crowd. She touched his robe, and the Bible tells us, immediately, the bleeding stopped. And she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition, just like that, after 4,330 days of bleeding. 12 years with a physical illness that brought emotional pain, it brought social pain, and just like that, the bleeding stopped. I wonder if she was stunned, if she was like, oh, did that really happen? I think that really happened. But she didn't have long to think about it because she heard Jesus' words. And here's what he said. He said, who touched my robe? I can picture her just freezing right there, like, right? If I'm still, maybe nobody will see me. But then the disciples said to Jesus, they said, Jesus, look at this crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched me? Don't you know she's saying, that's right, Jesus, look at the crowd. Look at the crowd. Don't think about who touched you. Let me be invisible. Here she's been living with shame and isolation for 12 long years, and she's about to get called out in front of the crowd. Everyone. We're going to see in a minute that she was so frightened that she was trembling. She was physically shaking. Here's what I wonder. Is she just afraid of what the crowd is going to do? Or maybe is she afraid of what Jesus is going to do? Like, is he going to be angry because she was out in public and she wasn't supposed to be? Is he going to humiliate her right there in front of everybody? What's Jesus going to do? Is he going to unheal her if he finds out that it's her? Here's something else that we can learn from her. The first thing we learned, push through the crowds, whatever stands in the way of getting to Jesus, make a decision, we're going to make time for him. Here's the second thing we learned from her. Sometimes we got to stop and sort out our misconceptions about who Jesus is. Here she's thinking, maybe is he going to be angry? She's got a lot of misconceptions about Jesus, and so do we. And the only way we can sort through those is to get to know him. A lot of people have a lot of ideas about Jesus, right? A lot of people have a lot of ideas about who he is. The only way that we can really know who he is by reading what he's communicated to us. Or listening, if you want to tap that little listen button. Did I mention that the book of Mark is a really good place to start if you haven't read the Bible? Or if you're wondering where, I couldn't remember if I had said that before. You know what I think is interesting? Jesus is God. He wasn't really clueless about who had touched him, right? Like, he knew who had touched him. So why would he make her come out of hiding like that? Like, why is he going to call her out on the carpet like that? Here's what I think. For one thing, I think he wanted everybody else to know that she had been healed, right? He wanted to set the example for how we're going to treat this woman. She's been healed. And we're not going to treat her in the way that she's been treated in the past. So I think that was one thing. But I think also that he wants to give her a chance to see who he really is. To push past not only the crowds, but to push through her misconceptions about who he is. Jesus doesn't care just about our physical health. He cares about that, yeah, but not just about our physical health. He created us to be so complex, didn't he? Like the physical and the spiritual and the emotional and the mental, it's all spaghetti together, right? Could you look at someone at your table and just say, you are so complex? Just tell them. Okay, now tell one more person. Tell one more person, okay? Tell one more person. We want to make sure everybody gets told. Would you tell one more person? You are so complex. All right, if anybody got left out, you ready? You are so complex. You are. But you know what? Jesus loves you holistically. He loves you holistically. The woman wanted physical healing, but Jesus wanted to give her so much more than just that. And to do that, she had to look at him. She had to hear his words. This is such a beautiful picture of the way that Jesus deals with us, the way he dealt with her. He wants to be more than just a vending machine, right? Like, could you do this for me? Yes, I'll do that for you. And then it's a transaction and it's over. No, it's not a transactional thing. It's a relationship. So Jesus kept on looking around to see who had done it. He wanted her to interact with him, to hear his words to her, to receive way more than just physical healing. And so the frightened woman, trembling at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell to her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. In one version it says, told him everything. And Jesus' response to her is beautiful. He says to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over. No anger, not at all. In fact, he seems really delighted to see her. He calls her daughter. Let that sink in just for a second. He calls her daughter. That says so much about relationship, doesn't it? Here's one of the many things I love about Jesus. He meets us where we are. He tells us who we are, and even more importantly, he tells us whose we are. Daughter. To that woman who had been so rejected, daughter communicated belonging and love and acceptance and caring. How healing would that be to her to hear those words? Daughter. With that word, he set her free from her shame, from her isolation, from all those words that had been spoken to her all those 4,330 days that had made her question her value. So this is very important. You ready? What other people say about you is not what matters. What other people have told you is not what matters. Because your identity is not determined by them. I love how J.D. Greear says it. He says, you are not what others have said about you. You are not what others have said about you. You are not what others have done to you. You are what Jesus has declared over you. You are what Jesus has declared over you. If you are a follower of Christ, if you have put your trust in Christ, daughter, that's your identity. That's who you are. Here's the third thing we can learn from our friend. Take time to listen to the words that Jesus speaks to you and apply them to your life. Drown out all those other words and listen to what Jesus says to you. Did I mention the book of Mark? Then he says to her, he says, your faith has made you well. Or some versions say, whole. Your faith has made you whole. You were broken. I'm so broken. But when I come to Jesus, he makes me whole. So that word that's translated well or whole, that Greek word, this book was written in Greek originally, that Greek word is used 109 times in the New Testament. Sometimes it's translated well, sometimes whole, but the great majority, like 80 sometimes I think, here's how it's translated. It's translated saved. Saved. It's the same word we read in Ephesians 2. God saved you by his grace when you believed. And you can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we've done, so none of us can boast about it. So Jesus looks at her and he says, your faith has made you well. Your faith has made you saved. Go in peace. So it's not because she was a good person that Jesus made her whole or saved her, and it's the same thing for us. When we bring all the mess, all the brokenness of who we are to Jesus, when we bring that to him and we recognize that he's God and we're not, he welcomes us with open arms, and he takes all that we've ever done wrong on himself, and he makes us whole. It's the most important thing we can ever do in life. Maybe you're listening tonight and you're like, this stuff is so confusing. Like, I don't understand what you're talking about, like relationship with Jesus and being forgiven, and what does all this mean, like spending time with Jesus? Whatever questions you have tonight, we really want Latte to be a safe place for you to ask them. So around your discussion table tonight, you can ask. This is a judgment-free zone. If someone starts to judge, you look at them and you just say, Mary says a judgment-free zone. None of that. None of that here tonight. I'll be around if you want to talk. If you have questions about this, like, how do I do that? How do I be forgiven? How do I become a follower of Jesus? We'd love to answer those questions for you. When we enter into a relationship with Jesus, here's a beautiful thing. Then we have that relationship with him. We can come and we can say, Jesus, could I talk to you about the things in this box? Or, Jesus, can we have a long conversation? We can bring all of those things to him, all of that pain to him, and we can trust him that he knows what's best in our lives. So for this woman, he did heal her physical illness. That's what brought her to him, and he did heal her. Sometimes he does that today. I can tell you, here at Grace Church, people with physical illnesses come, they ask for prayer, we pray for them, and we have seen God heal some amazing things. We've seen it happen. And anytime you want prayer, you can come to me, to some of the others here tonight who are on the prayer team. On a Sunday, you can come right after service. You can call the church during the week and say, could someone pray for me? And we're always happy to pray and ask God, could you bring healing for this person? And sometimes God does. He brings healing. But for other people, the answer is the answer that he gave to the Apostle Paul. Remember what happened to him? We read about the Apostle Paul having a thorn in his flesh. In other words, some type of physical ailment. And here's what Paul said. He said, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but the Lord said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness. So for whatever reason, my friend says that she has a box too. Her box is called the Mysteries of God box. And when she doesn't understand things, she says, I'm going to put that in the Mysteries of God box. For whatever reason, God chose not to heal Paul, but instead to give him grace to live with it. Coming to Jesus in faith means trusting him. Lord, you know best. You know best. He'll either change your circumstances or he'll give grace to live with those circumstances. He'll either display his power in healing or he'll display his power by giving grace to live with that situation. Some of my sweetest times of experiencing God's nearness and his love for me have been in the middle of pain. Pain that I've desperately wanted him to fix. I've prayed, Lord. I remember one time, a number of years ago, there was something that was happening in my life that was so painful, and I just prayed and prayed and prayed, and I said, Lord, please would you change this? And I remember one Sunday night we were having a healing service here. And I went up to the front and I kneeled right there at the front. They had told people that we could come forward and pray, and I went up there and I was just crying out to the Lord and just so broken. And I remember praying, Lord, would you please fix this? And he spoke to me. And I remember so clearly, so kindly, he spoke to me. And he said, Mary, if I took this out of your life, what would bring you here? This is drawing you to me, and I been the best thing that you could ever want. Did I like that answer? No. I wanted him to fix it. But I knew that he loved me so much and that he knows what's best. And so that night I said to him, okay, Lord, okay, I trust you. I trust you. So with that in mind, I want to take a few minutes now to think about our box, the things that you put in your box as we learned about our friend. We've all got different things. It was interesting, the last 2 days I talked to 3 young women, one who just had a baby, and the baby's healthy and everything's great, but she has a really broken heart because she just had a foster child taken away. Very painful to go back to a bad situation. Another woman who just had a baby and very excited about it, but this baby's got really serious health problems and is in the NICU, and that's hard. And then another woman who would really like to have a baby. And they're doing IVF, and it's not working. She just took another test and found out it was negative. So I think all these women, you look at them and they look like they have it all together, and yet they're carrying pain in their box. And you have pain in your box. We all do. So I wonder, didn't even bring any tissues up here. It's okay, I'm good. Thank you. One question I'm going to ask the Lord when I get to heaven is, why does our nose have to run when we cry? So that was a tangent. All right, so here's what I wonder. I wonder in a minute if we could just close our eyes. That way we can kind of just not be distracted by everybody around us and just be alone with Jesus for a minute. I wonder if you'd do that. Just close your eyes. And could you just open up that box with him for a minute? Lord, you are so big and powerful, and you created the stars and the sun and the ocean and all those things, and yet you are so interested in the details of our lives, and you know the hidden pain that every woman in this room carries. You know. So Lord, I pray for your grace as we think about those things, the hidden pains that we carry. I pray, Lord, that you'll lead us, draw us to yourself. Let us find you to be so real and so near and so strong. And Lord, when you know it's best to fix those things, would you do it? And when you tell us, no, I have a bigger plan that you might not like or understand, would you help us to say, okay, Lord, I know what you did on the cross, and so I trust you. Thank you. Thank you, Lord, for being here with us tonight. We're so grateful. I pray that conversation around these tables would be sweet and deep, that you'd allow for laughter and for tears, for no judgment of each other, just for loving and caring for each other. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, before we go to discussion, I wonder if we could say our memory verse. It's going to be up on the screen here. You ready? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. He's with you tonight. He's with you around this table. He's with you as you discuss. I hope it's a great time of conversation. Love you, ladies.